Australia is so vast and expansive and big that it's hard to keep track of all of our animal species. Most of our lists of animals are usually punctuated with might be endangered, probably extinct, and alive somewhere, I guess. Some animals are so rare that they're seen once and then never seen again, like that frog that would give birth via its mouth. It showed up for such a short amount of time, they didn't even give it a fun name like the mouth-birthing frog. It was called this. It showed up in 1973 and then it disappeared in 1981 and they haven't seen it since. I'm guessing this one is probably extinct. Then there's the Ulacunta. Yeah, that's what it was called. Unlucky name, huh? Nearly everything that's known about this desert rat kangaroo is thanks to two blokes across history. The first guy was John Gould, who wrote about the desert rat kangaroo in 1843. He says that it was a rabbit-sized kangaroo that could run super fast and for a super long period of time. He probably wrote it a bit fancier than that, because like he was like a fancy brain scholar and stuff, and I'm just a dickhead on YouTube, but you get the idea. His gang sent a couple of samples off to the British Museum, but then the Ulacunta disappeared and no one could find any trace of it for almost 100 years. Enter the next bloke, Hedley Herbet Finlayson, a chemist with a mouthful of a name. He loved discovering rare native animals because it was a lot easier back then than it is today. Back then, you could find a brown dog and be like, oh, it's a special kind of brown dog. And people would be like, oh yeah, it's a different shade of brown. You should name that after yourself. You can't do that these days because all brown dogs have been discovered. In 1931, he led an expedition into the intense heat of Sturt's stony desert. When they got there, old mate found out that, nah, the desert rat kangaroo wasn't probably endangered. It was thriving. And what John Gould said was right. It was incredibly fast and it had an amazing level of stamina. This thing could probably play a motion-controlled video game all day without needing a rest. HHF decided to try and catch one with his 4 indigenous tracker friends. They chased the Ulacunta on horseback for 12 miles. That's 20 kilometers for people who speak in normal distance language. This little kangaroo rat outpaced these horses for 12 miles in the searing heat of the Australian outback. This little dude was the fastest runner in the animal kingdom. Take that, cheetah. So HHF reported back about his findings and the Ulacunta's status was changed to probably alive. In 1935, 4 years later, he went back to have a look at the Ulacunta and bammo, it was gone. The Ulacunta was like the animal kingdom version of a deadbeat dad. It went out for cigarettes and never came back. But my favorite animal disappearing story is thanks to a man called Gerard Krefft. He was a bit of a legend in the Australian zoology game. He was mates with Charles Darwin and he wrote a few books on snakes. In 1857, Gerard caught 2 bandicoots with hooves, similar to a little pig's feet. Unfortunately for the world of modern science and for the bandicoots, Gerard got hungry and ate them. They were the last of their species. Later in his career, Jezza was appointed head of the Australian Museum in Sydney, but was fired when upper management literally carried him out of the museum in the chair he was sitting on, because it was discovered that he was selling pornographic postcards to supplement his income. I'm sure there's a point to that story, but I wouldn't know it. Anyway, those are some fun stories on Australia's rarest animals. Pretty fun, and I hope you enjoyed it. If you like this, check out this video about the shark that coughed up a human arm, which then turned into a murder mystery. I hope my head didn't get cut off too much. Forgive me if it did. Fuck.